There's so many things that I want to touch on, but I do want to ask how being a mom, talking about like grace and softness, has really impacted like how you live, how you lead, and the work that you put out into the world.
I love this question. I think so many ways. I'm like continually being challenged by the experience, and it's no day is the same, and it's often moment by moment. But I think it has taught me to surrender a bit.
Mm.
I think I have a lot more surrendering to do. My time is not the same anymore because you have something that you're prioritizing above anything else. And for me, I always prioritize my work. My work always came before a lot of other decisions that I made. And it's just, yeah, it's like humbling and incredible that like you could have a jam-packed day, back-to-back meetings, and then here's this little person that's not feeling well and needs you, and just of course wanting to drop everything just to take care of that little person, but at the same time, in a way, having, I wouldn't say there's resistance for me because it's just so clear what I need to do in that moment, but it's almost like you have to go through a stage of grieving the old you.
Mm.
And that feels sometimes complicated because it's, as a high achiever, to your point, it's just, I've always been one of these people who wanted like jam pack my day, cramp everything in. And I think I've just got a little bit more ease and fluidity in the energy in which I approach life. And I think as somebody also that does struggle with epilepsy, and I have to prioritize my health. And that has been the case for a long time. But now there are some nights where I mentioned this to you at the start of the call. I was saying that I was worried I was going to be very inarticulate because I only had 4 or 5 hours sleep last night. And you just had to go with it, right? You can't do anything else. But there are so many ways. My love and appreciation for women is like just it's just like no other. Like it just makes, I'm so in awe of what our bodies are capable of doing. And I think also just all the women who came before, and you suddenly feel this deep appreciation for your own mother and this kind of like incredible sort of understanding that your parents did their best and they were just kids that look like grown-ups on the outside trying to figure it out. And I always think that's really has been interesting too, because suddenly you're like the grown-up and you might not really feel like a grown-up a lot of the time, and that's pretty wild too.
And they're not supposed to understand. I heard this quote recently, I think it was from Jenna Zoe, that your parents aren't meant to understand exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. You're meant to outgrow them in a really beautiful way. And that really changed my perspective and my relationship, honestly, with my mom, and being like, she did her best and she's doing her best and she's not meant to understand exactly
I love
entrepreneurship
that.
and pushing along. Yeah. It really gives a lot of softness and resacreds that relationship to not only your mom, but again, like all women. It's like birth it, like
100%.
we literally were able to birth life. And that is like genuinely the most sacred thing of all.
It is just, it's hard to even intellectualize like what this experience is, because it's so like giving birth is just so incredibly like spiritually expansive. Like it's just out of body. And I think all the learnings that come with it. And I love that point you made about just your own experience with having just a little more softness around your relationship with your mom. And I think it's sometimes hard because certainly our generation, we do a lot of work, and a lot of time, the deep work starts with family. And so we go in to the weeds and we figure out where our stuff comes from and what caused this and what caused that, and essentially how our parents messed us up. And it can be easy sometimes just to be resentful and blame. And because when you've done a lot of work, you know where certain things come from. But I think if you can pass through that and get to that point where you still get triggered and you still, I think as a mom, there's still things that I'm like, I'm going to do things differently to the way that I experienced them or the way I was parented. But I think, yeah, just having that appreciation for the fact that they were just doing their very best. And now
Yeah.
I'm trying to do my very best.
Absolutely. And then the next generation will look back and probably say the same things. But I want to touch on something that you said is just this over intellectualization of healing, which I feel like is what we're experiencing right now. And I feel like a big part of Looni and the work you put out into the world is like dropping into our bodies and really honoring the wisdom that we have within, honoring our bio individuality and listening to our bodies, like resacreding that we have so many cycles within us and around us. And I think a big part of your work is, and Looni is getting to like the root cause and help people guide to that. And every single one of us is different. So thank you for that. And on that note, are there any resources that you would recommend that have just been really supportive along your journey, whether it's personal, professional, miscarriage,
Oh,
endometriosis, anything that stands out? Loaded question.
so many. I'm just trying to think of the topics okay, so for anyone looking to learn more about cannabinoids and how they might impact or support different conditions, I love Project CBD. I think it's projectcbd.org. That is an incredible platform, educational platform that focuses on cannabinoids and how they can support people who are struggling with many different conditions. Obviously, I mentioned Looni's Community. I loved Woman Code by Alicia Vitti. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
Alicia Vitti, yeah. She's incredible.
Incredible. I think she was a real pioneer of cycle syncing, and she speaks to how to implement that approach in a very comprehensible, digestible way. So I really would recommend her book. Let me think what else. Please come over to Looni's blog. We talk a lot about topics that I've mentioned today, from pregnancy loss to period sex, you name it. There's a lot of information there, as well as our social. And yeah, I can keep going. Maybe we'll follow up in the show notes and I'll send some more. I did also just want to recommend Dr. Aviva Rom. She is incredible. Actually, was fortunate enough to speak on her podcast recently, but she has 2 incredible books that have just been such a huge part, an influential part of my journey with herbal medicine. She has one book which is called Hormone Intelligence, and the other one that's called Botanical Medicine for Women's Health. Cannot recommend those books enough. Those have been Bibles for me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have those in the show notes. But to wrap, I have so many more questions, but I feel like we'll get to have you back to drill down deeper into some of these stories, because I feel like, similar to you, I think connecting with people and hearing those stories are the most healing of all. Like the tips, the tools, the modalities all help, but it's really like getting the expansion and hearing other people going through something similar is the most healing thing. So thank you for being here. And